I use terms like sexy and sleek all the time when I'm describing audio gear, but I can't remember a time that I used those words to describe a brick-shaped piece of gear with a foam hat on. But here we are. This is the Sennheiser Profile Wireless, a literal all-in-one field recorder slash wireless kit slash charging brick, I guess? The wireless world is heating up at the end of 2024. So let's see if this monster can take on the reigning 2.4 gigahertz beast, the Rode Wireless Pro, and survive. Now, by the way, this thing was sent to me by Sennheiser, but I'm sending it back. So the usual disclaimer is invoked here, however. They have no say, and they will not be seeing this video before it comes out. Now, as for the build quality, this is an interesting marriage of form and function. The brick basically acts as a protective carrying case, as well as the handle of a microphone. The transmitters and receiver are all spring-loaded inside, and each has its own release button along the body. Also, on the side of the charging port, you have this little door that reveals a few connection options for your phone. Also, included in there is a cold shoe mount for your camera as well. I love how this is becoming a thing, and I saw this for the first time with the Ceramic Ultra. Again, I'm gonna have to reiterate, I love the implementation, though I'm gonna lose these things so quickly. I did look on the B&H website, and yes, you can get replacements, but please note they go for about 20 bucks a pop, so don't lose these. Now, it's a very cool way of streamlining a phone recording setup without needing a way to secure the receiver to the phone, and no need for cables either. Now, on the other side of the brick, you have the operating screen for using this as a handheld mic. All the features you can think of are right there, and that also is the receiver. And on the back, you have the mount for using this as a microphone on a stand. And of course, on the top of the unit, when you have the sock off, you can see the two capsules just poking out, just waiting to be pointed at a sound source. Now, going back to the actual build quality of this thing, it is all plastic, though it doesn't feel super cheap. This is one of those trade-offs to keep it light, so it is a necessary evil, I would say. But that said, it isn't so cheap that it would probably break on a single drop. However, I'm not going to be testing that today. Now, when you take the individual units out, they have the exact same build, and you can see here the scale differences between them and some of the brands I've featured recently. Now, the transmitters have just two buttons on them, one for on and off, and the other for starting to record. The backs of the clips are metal, so these will work with magnets, and those magnets are fun. They're just kind of stored on the back of the unit right here. I actually missed these at first. I didn't think there were any magnets being included with this thing, so it actually kind of caught me by surprise. Very cool to do that, Sennheiser. And the only other thing to mention on the transmitters, though, is that there's a threaded port for a lav mic. But this kit that sells for $299 does not come with any lav mics. Now, as for the receiver, it only has one button, which locks the screen. This, I need to point out, is a very good button. Do not hesitate to lock your screen, as you will find yourself elbow deep in the settings with a single touch if you don't. Otherwise, there are two 3.5mm jacks here, one for headphones and one is an audio out. The aforementioned screen is actually quite good, and it has a ton of info on it, and it's extremely responsive to touch. Navigating is pretty simple with a series of swipes to work your way around, and of course taps to choose your settings. I will say, it takes a light touch, and you're going to need to get used to it. And with sausage fingers like mine, it was quite frustrating at times, but I did get used to it relatively quick. Now, as for the specs, not really a whole bunch in here to talk about, as is usual with these 2.4 gigahertz wireless stuff. Frequency response of 60 Hz to 20 kHz. Signal to noise ratio of 78.5 dBA weighted. We're going to come around to that in a bit. A max SPL of 113 dB. 7 hours of battery life, though I think you can get like 2 charges out of the brick. And finally, this thing is 24-bit and 48 kHz. No 32-bit float. That's an interesting choice these days. However, I should point out, there is a safety channel that you can engage to avoid clipping, which, well, it's basically how we used to do it back in the day. So this is the distance test with the Sennheiser Profile Wireless, and once again, this is kind of the distance test I do with all the wireless mics. What do you think? This is a long way to run away, so I'm gonna get back to my unattended camera. Okay, so we have the Sennheiser Profile Wireless hooked up to my jacket. You can see it right down here. I got the windscreen on. It is the beginning of a brutal Canadian winter. No snow yet, but cold. I don't even know if you can see me. There I am. Hey, I'm out of the shadows. This is what it sounds like. This is the Sennheiser Profile Wireless hooked to my jacket. All right, now we got the Rode Wireless Pro and the hat on. See if they work together. The Wireless Pro is on my jacket at the same spot that the Profile Wireless was on, and this is what it sounds like walking up and down my street. Of course, I've got that wind protector or the wind sock on the Rode Wireless Pro, and yeah, that's what it sounds like. And back around, and we're gonna try out a whole other microphone. Okay, now we have the Sennheiser Ultra, and just because it was sitting around, you can see it on my jacket, the same spot that we had everything else at. And this is what it sounds like. Having a weird issue with the gain on this. I've got it way down, -10 gain, and for some reason still peaking. I wanna know how the audio sounds and why this just seemed to go rogue all of a sudden. Let me know what you think. The Sennheiser Ultra, walking up and down the street on my mirrorless Sony camera. So now we're testing this out with the thing on my shirt, going into my cell phone, and this is what it sounds like. Okay, now we have the Rode Wireless Pro on my shirt. You can see it's right here. It's plugged into my cell phone. And now this is the cell phone, the audio from just the cell phone microphone. So what do you think? It's plugged into an iPhone through USB. Yes, I've moved over to the iPhone train. And this is the sound of the Rode Wireless Pro going into my cell phone via USB. What do you think between this and the Sennheiser Profile mic? It's obviously going to be a better sound than the phone, right? Let me know what you think. Which one do you like? This one or the Sennheiser Profile? Okay, I'm not sure how important this is to everyone else, but for me, the ability to use the case for data transfer is up there on my list of needs. I also know that companies are not seeing this as a priority because the last two I've reviewed, the Ceremonic and this, seem to not see it as important. You can't actually transfer data through this USB port. I get it. You can just plug them all in separately and get the files off, but also being able to access everything all at once is something that has me spoiled with the Rode Wireless Pro. There is a caveat here. That generally does require an app, and Sennheiser doesn't seem to offer such things. Now, I don't know if the traces exist to make such a thing happen, though if they do, please Sennheiser, make this perfect. Now, the bigger issue here that we do have to talk about is the noise that I'm getting from the unit. Now, let me explain. I have shot this video about 8 times, and something kept bothering me when I shot inside. You see, when I have the receiver going straight into my camera, like I do right now, and I'll be able to A/B the audio in a second, the noise is actually really bad when I gain the audio up in post. And I think that is added noise from the output, because when I record locally onto the transmitter as I'm doing for this video, that additional noise isn't there. And on a unit that's supposed to have lower self-noise than the Rode, it's not great. Again, though, it's not present on the recorded audio locally on the transmitter, and that's what I'm using for this video. So let's take a look at the A/B of what's going into my camera versus what's being recorded locally on the transmitter. And yes, of course, noise can be filtered out to some degree, but this might cause you to pause if you're looking forward to using this with the camera setup. Now, I do have some interesting thoughts about this. Despite what I just said about noise, I'm extremely intrigued by what this thing represents to the recording field. And I have to give some serious props to Sennheiser. Innovation is necessary these days to stand out in what is becoming a very crowded field. This thing is doing things differently, all while trying to fill a hole that might be present in content creation. And there aren't enough brands doing that these days. Most are literally just trying to copy the leading brand, and that's it. We need more companies like this trying to blaze their own trail. So instead of just pitting two brands together to see which one you like better, maybe there's more choice for what your specific use case might be. I can see this being very popular just for the usefulness of it and what this might add to some people's workflow. A couple things do make me wonder though. One is the decision to not include lav mics. Now, to be fair, I've been using the Rode Wireless Pro since they came out, and I've only used the lavs maybe once or twice. So maybe this is just a way for you to save money if you really just want the transmitters and the receiver. But if you do need some lavs, keep in mind, the the price of this thing is going to start to go up rather quickly. Now, I do believe, though, along with the SRM1 mics, the price does remain competitive with the Wireless Pro, though I haven't used the lavs, so I can't really give you my take on them. Next up is the lack of 32-bit float. Now, I have been super vocal in saying that the best integration of 32-bit float is on wireless recorders. So if you are specifically looking for that feature, this might not be for you. But what I can say, with the safety channel option and just a little bit of smarts when you're setting up, you'll be fine with 24-bit. Now keep in mind, I've been using 32-bit float on the Wireless Pro since they've come out, and not once have I needed to salvage past 0 dB. So take that however you want. And of course, the case not being used for data transfer. Oh, I'm still sore about that. Anyways, but if all that ends up being a nothing burger for you, this thing's awesome. It's sleek, it's compact, and very much a true competitor in this space. And that's what's really needed right now. The more innovation and options that we as consumers have, it can only mean better options and prices in the future. What do you think of this thing, though? Let me know down below. Cheers, guys, and thanks for watching.